All right, Tony. So I was just watching your video, and one, you know who I'm going to recommend, but I wanted to explain to you a couple things. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to say about walk behinds is that literally, man, that's all I have experience on. I mean, I've used a stand on and I've used a zero turn, but I have thousands upon thousands of hours on walk behinds because I live in hilly East Tennessee. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that the Turf Tracer is a dang good lawnmower, and I can't find anything to beat up about it except for it's the same old design and it's really kind of outdated. Now, as far as the Ferris goes, I actually have used every single one of the Ferris lines. I've used the FW35 in a 48 to a 61, and I've used the FW25 in the 36. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that one thing you need to consider when you're considering a walk behind is that you need the floating deck, okay? And while Ferris FW35 has that nifty little thing that you can do to raise and lower the deck, it really doesn't float like a normal floating deck. It only travels so far. And it's not horrible, but it's definitely it's noticeable compared to some of the other floating deck walk behinds that have the pin system. Now, the pin system, you were picking the pin system apart, and you are correct. Almost every single walk behind that you go to purchase will have, if I'm not mistaken, if it's got the pin system, will be 1/2 inch increments, except for this one. They have this side and this side, so you can do 1/4 inch increments. Now, whether or not that solves your problem about your walk behind decision or not, just saying. Now, the biggest factor that you noticed is that you said when you got on the Ferris walk behinds that you noticed how easy they were to control with your hands, and you were absolutely correct about that. The reason for that is that it's a hydro gear transmission versus a hydro pump and wheel motor. Now, there's some debate on those. They're cheaper, so they're not as expensive to replace, but then I've seen it where they don't last as long either, so it's kind of like a give and take. Which one do you want to go with? Like I said, I use those Ferris. The FW35 is going to come with I want to say it's the 3100s, and I think even the 25 comes with the 3100s, so you're good there. They're really good. They're not undersized like the Skag that you were talking about, the SWZT. They're 2800s, and they're not actually commercial grade hydro transmissions, which is, what do you want? That's why I stayed away from them, honestly, is just because that transmission thing, it kind of bothered me. Now, the FW35, I mean, the main one that I used was a 52 at the company I used to work for, and I had to put over 500 hours on it, if I'm not mistaken. That season that I used it, I put over 500 hours on it, and it did well. There was no problems. The FW35s will also come with the larger engine choices. That one had a 28 horsepower Vanguard EFI on it. And you're probably right, they are a good bang for your buck. But the point that I'm going to throw out there to you, and that I really want you to kind of get where I'm coming from and why I keep pushing these right walk behinds, is number one, when you're buying a lawnmower, what are you really buying? You are buying a deck, okay? The Kawasaki engines, the Parker or hydro gear transmissions or pumps and wheel motors, they are all on every single machine. It's just what choice did they decide to put on there, okay? So really what you buy is a frame and a deck. And what you will find on the SWZT, what you will find on the Ferris FW35, what you will find on the Exmark Turf Tracer is decks that are not top line decks. It is a deck that they've made, that was the top of line deck several years ago, and they just keep making small changes to it and stuff like that. If I'm not mistaken, the SWZT comes with like it may be the, I can't remember what it is. It's not the Velocity Plus. I can't remember what it is, but it's a lower grade deck. And when it comes to just about any brand, Ferris, that's not their high. That's not the ICD deck. Exmark, that's like the what is it? I can't remember what the top deck is, but it's not on their Turf Tracers. And the only brand that I've found that puts that on their walk behinds is Wright. That is it. The only one. They put that deck on everything, and that deck is phenomenal, in my opinion. The other thing that I'm going to throw out there, and the reason that if you're going to buy a walk behind, the reason I think you should buy the Wright is real simple. The two things that you had complaints about. Number one, 1/4 inch increments. That's covered. Number two, Wright walk behinds come in pistol grips, and they also come in the ECS style controls. Now, they are pump and wheel motor, and they are, I want to say, not as easy as the Ferris FW35, but man, I mean, they're easy. I mean, they really are. Like, I was really shocked about how much, because I had several seasons of use on Turf Tracers before we switched to the FW35s, and Turf Tracers will wear your hands out. I'm talking, my hands they're already bulky and stuff, but I mean, they were solid as a rock just from all day long, just boom, boom, boom. And that stuff really killed my hands. And when we switched to those FW35s, it was like switching to something from, like, you had to pull weights to pull these back to, oh, that's butter, that's butter, that's butter. And you could just tell. I mean, calluses on my hands disappeared after we switched to those. So there is a pro to having the Hydro Gear transmissions. But at the same time, you know, like I said, they say they don't last as long. But I'm just telling you, man, you should really consider the Wright. I know you're saying, like, price-wise, they're kind of up there, but, I mean, really? I mean, you're also talking about buying a Walker B, and that's, like, one of the most expensive mowers you can buy, you know? Well, in that class. But I just wanted to make this video response because if you're really considering a walk behind, now, I don't want to say I am the authority on walk behinds, but that's all I use. I have a lot of experience on them, and just wanted to kind of give your input, or give you some input on what I was thinking about your video. And, you know, man, make the choice that's right for you, but that's right for you. But I'm just being honest, I prefer Wright. I have a really good dealer locally, though, but the number one thing that you need to look for is a good dealer. I mean, if you have an excellent relationship with your Skag dealer, go that route. But I'm just telling you that the Wright stand-ons are getting so much praise that it bothers me how overlooked the walk behinds are, because this walk behind will do anything. That's why I use walk behinds. There is not a situation that I could not mow with the walk behind. That's not the case for standards. That's not the case for zero turns. And so I just think they're the best bang for your buck. And so if I was you, man, I would highly consider the Wright Velke. Like I said, pistol grip, 1/4 inch increments, and you also get the best deck that they sell.